Hi, my name is Joel Shinnis. Yes, that Joel Shinnis on YouTube. And I want to take a moment to talk about your brain. A bit about my brain. It has ADHD. And as a result, one of the things that comes with that is that I have poor working memory. It's almost like not having much RAM, or like having a whiteboard at your desk, but it's really small and you have to keep on erasing it. So I have to do what I can to sort of use my brain the most effectively. Keep as few things on it at one time, and also keep as little stuff there so that when I come back to my work from being distracted, I'll be effective. So I wanted to share with you 5 of the ways that I do that. So number 1, I outsource my thinking. This may sound a little bit weird, but I use tools like TypeScript and ESLint. And what they let me do is they let me just kind of write code, and they catch a lot of a certain kind of error very quickly. So with TypeScript, like, it catches a lot of my typos. ESLint lets me know, like, hey, either what you've written isn't syntactically correct at all, or you're missing this part, or like you created a variable and didn't use it, or maybe you created a variable and just used the wrong name. TypeScript also becomes an autocomplete, which is super handy, because then I don't have to remember I can remember like the first few letters or something and be like, oh yeah, that's right. Now there is some investment cost to tools like this, but if you find a tool set that really works for you, they can help really make you more effective. All right, second thing is shrink your focus. One of the things I do when I'm working, I tend to think of it architecturally. Like my code is a bunch of components, and how do they fit together? And when I'm working on one component, I'm working on just that component. And I'm not worried about what something else in another file is going to be doing, because I just kind of write it to the interface. I also try to make sure I'm not working on requirements I don't need before I really need them. I try not to anticipate work so much, as I just want to make this one thing, do this one thing, and then I want to move on. When I shrink that focus, again, it's less I have to think about. I try to be as fastidious as I can about the single responsibility principle. And I find that when I stray from that, that's when I get in trouble. I also, when I'm trying a new technique, I'll often experiment with it outside of my program. And then once I know how it works and what it does, I try to bring it in, rather than trying to learn how to do something in your program all at the same time. All right, number 3, prevent debugging. Oh, how I hate debugging. Debugging is the worst, most demoralizing type of programming you can ever have. It drives me insane. All right, because who knows what's causing the problem? So this may sound like, hey, get it right the first time, everything's fine. And while that's not exactly what I'm saying, it's kind of what I'm saying. There are numbers of disciplines and things you can do to help get things right the first time. If you find yourself making a very similar mistake over and over again, maybe there's a way to learn from that. Maybe there's a way to kind of get that skill down. If you, I use things like test-driven development, which I'll leave a link up there, but a video I already made on test-driven development. I tend to use functional programming principles wherever possible, so a declarative style, immutable data, fewer side effects, not trying to let more than one data kind of share the same thing. And what I find is that doing things this way makes me really successful, and it makes it likely that I will get something that's through the first time, and I don't have to come back to it as often. Doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. I just find ways of sort of like, if I'm making the same mistake over and over again, I practice that until I get it right. All right, the 4th thing, clarity over cleverness. I used to be the kind of programmer that would write things in like these big, statements, and have like nested ternary functions and things like that. Like nested. And sometimes I still have to do that. But for the most part, I've learned to really break my code apart, right? I've learned to give variables really descriptive names. I've learned to take some part of my code and break it out into separate functions, even if I only call that function once. I've learned a lot about how to make my code easy to read, easy to maintain, easy to change. And that saves me a lot of thinking. Just switching over to a more clear style, looking over your code and saying, hey, am I able to read this in a second? And if you can't, going back over it and making more sense of it. This really helps you, and it helps the members of the team you're working with. and it helps anyone who may come after you. All right, the last thing, and this is the most important thing, listen to yourself. Your brain is not my brain. My brain is riddled with ADHD. Your brain may work differently than mine. If you are having a hard day, figure out what you did that day that made it hard. If you find yourself flying through something, figure out what happened. If you have an easy time on a project or a hard time on a project that you didn't expect, spend some time thinking about why that's the case and what you can do to replicate a success or eradicate a failure. The most important thing is that your brain is your brain and it is your muscle, and you have to use it in the way that works best for you, not just for everybody else in your team. All right? If you have any questions about the tools or techniques I'm talking about, please leave me know in the comments. If there's another subject you'd like me to cover on a 5-ish, please put it in the comments. And if there's any other questions you might have, please let me know. I'm hoping to do more of these. Certainly we have time now, so well, thank you so much for your time and attention. I really hope that this helps. Best of luck out there. Bye.